Have you ever made a decision that haunted you for years? That moment when you chose one path over another and the weight of that choice settled into your bones, creating a shadow that follows you through life? We all carry these shadows, these regrets, yet we rarely speak about them with honesty. Today, I want to explore not just the pain of regret, but its profound philosophical importance in creating meaning in our lives. The ancient Stoics believed that regret was a form of madness, an emotional reaction to something we cannot change. And yet, modern philosophers like Bernard Williams argue that regret is precisely what makes us human. It's the price we pay for moral complexity, for having the freedom to choose in a world where choices matter. In the next few minutes, I want to challenge you to reconsider your relationship with regret, not as something to be avoided at all costs, but perhaps as one of life's most profound teachers. Because the question isn't whether you'll experience regret, but what meaning you'll create from it. Regret is an extraordinary emotion. Unlike guilt, which focuses on our actions, regret centers on our choices. The roads not taken, the possibilities unleft. It's the emotional residue of counterfactual thinking, that peculiar human ability to imagine alternative realities where we made different choices. When we experience regret, our brains activate the orbitofrontal cortex, the same region involved in reward processing and decision-making. Neurologically speaking, regret isn't just emotional suffering. It's our mind's attempt to learn from perceived mistakes. It's a cognitive mechanism attempting to prevent future errors by making us acutely aware of our past ones. But there's something philosophically profound about regret that neuroscience alone cannot capture. Existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre would argue that regret is the inevitable consequence of human freedom. We are condemned to be free, as Sartre famously put it, forced to make choices without complete knowledge of their consequences, yet fully responsible for them nonetheless. This creates what philosophers call the paradox of regret. If we believe our choices were meaningful and had real consequences, then regret becomes unavoidable. The only way to live without regret would be to believe our choices were meaningless, a cure worse than the disease. Our modern culture seems pathologically afraid of regret. From corporate motivational posters proclaiming no regrets to social media influencers advising us to live without regrets, we're constantly bombarded with the message that regret is a failure, a sign of weakness to be avoided at all costs. This cultural attitude has ancient roots. The Epicureans of ancient Greece advocated for ataraxia, freedom from mental disturbance, arguing that one should minimize regret through careful choice and philosophical detachment. Buddhism similarly encourages non-attachment to outcomes as a path to liberation from suffering. Yet other philosophical traditions take a radically different approach. In Confucian thought, for instance, appropriate regret is considered a virtue, a sign of moral development and self-cultivation. The Japanese concept of hansei, often translated as reflection, incorporates elements of regret as a necessary component of personal growth and improvement. Friedrich Nietzsche, ever the contrarian, proposed the concept of amor fati, love of fate. Rather than avoiding regret, Nietzsche suggested embracing every aspect of one's life, including mistakes and regrets, as necessary elements in becoming who we are. I want to learn more and more to see as beautiful what is necessary in things, he wrote. Then I shall be one of those who make things beautiful. What if our cultural fixation on avoiding regret is actually preventing us from extracting its philosophical value? Here's a philosophical thought experiment. If you could take a pill that would erase all your regrets, all memories of mistakes and wrong turns, would you take it? Before you answer too quickly, consider what might be lost. Our regrets are intimately connected to our identity. The philosopher Bernard Williams introduced the concept of constitutive luck, the idea that factors beyond our control, including our mistakes and regrets, constitute who we are. Would erasing regret also mean erasing part of yourself? Consider the case of patients with ventromedial prefrontal cortex damage who show diminished capacity for regret. Research shows these individuals make poorer decisions and struggle with interpersonal relationships. Without regret, they lack a crucial mechanism for evaluating the quality of their choices and adjusting their behavior. The narrative psychologist Dan McAdams suggests that our identity is essentially a story we tell about ourselves, and meaningful stories require tension, conflict, and resolution. In this narrative framework, regrets aren't just unfortunate episodes, they're plot points that give our life story depth and complexity. If this channel has been helping you think more deeply about life's philosophical questions, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. Your support helps us continue exploring these fundamental aspects of human existence, and you'll never miss our weekly explorations into life's most profound questions. There's a profound difference between what philosophers call inhibitory regret and transformative regret. Inhibitory regret paralyzes us, keeping us trapped in cycles of rumination and self-recrimination. Transformative regret, by contrast, becomes a catalyst for growth and meaning-making. Martin Heidegger's concept of Dasein, authentic being, requires confronting the finitude of existence and the irreversibility of time. For Heidegger, authenticity means acknowledging our past choices while projecting ourselves toward future possibilities. In this framework, regret isn't something to be avoided, but rather integrated into an authentic life. The ancient Greeks had a concept called metanoia, often mistranslated simply as repentance. More accurately, it describes a transformative change of mind, a fundamental shift in perspective that comes after recognition of error. It's not just feeling bad about a mistake, it's allowing that mistake to transform your worldview. Consider Viktor Frankl, who developed logotherapy after surviving the Holocaust. Frankl argued that suffering becomes bearable when we find meaning in it. Similarly, regret becomes transformative when we extract meaning from our mistakes, when we use them as material for creating a more authentic and purposeful existence. Philosophically speaking, this transformative approach to regret requires three elements: honest acknowledgement of choice and responsibility, integration of the regretted experience into our broader life narrative, and what philosopher Hilda Lindemann calls counterstory, reframing our understanding of the past in ways that open up new possibilities for the future. As we reach the end of our exploration, I'm reminded of Kierkegaard's insight that life must be lived forward, but can only be understood backward. Regret exists precisely at this intersection, looking backward to understand, yet necessary for living forward with wisdom. Perhaps the most profound philosophical approach to regret isn't to avoid it or even merely to accept it, but to recognize it as evidence of our moral seriousness. To regret is to acknowledge that choices matter, that we affect others, that our lives have consequence and meaning. So I leave you with this question: what if your regrets aren't failures to be hidden, but rather invitations to a deeper, more authentic engagement with your own existence? What meanings might you create from the mistakes that have shaped you? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, because perhaps in the end, it's not the absence of regret that defines a well-lived life, but rather what we make of the regrets we inevitably acquire along the way.